So we'll discuss some Inyani Sukkot with Sukkot quickly approaching tomorrow evening. So the Torah tells us, Basukkot Teishvu Shiva Shamim, there's a mitzvah to dwell in the Sukkah for 7 days. And we know in Chutz La'aretz we keep an extra day of Yom Tov Sheni. And then it's followed by the Yom Tov Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And when the Torah says Teishvu, we have a principle the Gemara learns out, Teishvu ke'ein tadiru, that how should one live in the sukkah? The way you live in the house. So therefore, in fact, there are people who sleep in the sukkah, do everything in the sukkah, but it's also related to another halacha of mitztayar. We have a principle in the Gemara, mitztayar patur min hatsukkah. One who is under distress is exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. I.e., if it's raining, then there is no mitzvah of sukkah. Because why? Because just like if you were sitting in the kitchen and there was a leak in the ceiling, you wouldn't sit in the kitchen, you'd go to another room. So too, if it's raining and you don't feel in the sukkah, then you might not have a kosher sukkah. But if it's pouring rain, so then you're exempt from the sukkah, and the different exemptions are mitzvah. With one exception to the rule, that is tomorrow night, Laila Rishona, and in our case it's the first 2 nights, that since it's a question on the first night, there's a whole discussion, the Rishonim, whether the mitzvah is eating in the sukkah, is it yeshiva sukkah. So the bottom line, it comes out a dispute among the Rishonim whether there's an exemption the first night of Sukkot, and i.e. the second night of Sukkot, from Sukkah. So therefore, since it's a machlokas Rishonim, so what we do is, so if it's going to be pouring rain the whole night, if you assume it's going to stop, meaning by looking at the sky, hearing the weather report, if it's going to stop shortly, 5, 10, 15, half an hour, then if it's possible, depending how many young kids are there or the scenario, you can wait a little bit. But if not, if it's basically going to rain the whole evening and there's no reason to believe it's going to stop, so then what you do is as follows. The first night, it's only the first and second night. During the day, any day of Sukkot, it's raining, you eat inside. You do everything inside. The issue is only the first and second night, and what you do is you make kiddush in the sukkah, and however you don't make a leishe basukkah because you're sitting in the rain. And what you do is you have a kazayas of bread. You go out, you have a motzi, you have a kazayas of bread, and you come inside. So if it stops raining later, then and it's clear. If it stopped raining, but it's still, you can't stop the dripping, it's all disgusting in there, then you don't have to go back. But assuming it's something you could go back to, so then you'd go back, you'd finish your meal, you have more bread, and then you'd even make your leishe basukkah, and then you go back out. But barring that, it's only an issue for the first 2 nights. Since it's a question, since some Rishonim, why don't you make a leishe basukkah, but I'm sitting in the rain? Because since some Rishonim say, I'm exempt, there is no mitzvah even the first night, so since it's a sveika dedina, even though the Ramah seems to write you do it, but nevertheless it's a doubt among the poskim, and therefore that would be our practice. But barring that, any other night, when it's patur. In fact, the Gemara, the Yerushalmi, which the Ramah brings down, says that's where the phrase comes, that someone who is exempt, there's an expression in the Yerushalmi, someone who is exempt from something and he does it, nikra hedjot, is called a fool. So that's a separate share what that means, because what do you mean? Women that volunteer mitzvahs all the time, and we assume it's praiseworthy, not foolish. So that's a separate discussion. But what the Ramah is referring to, the Yerushalmi, the example is one who sits in the sukkah in the rain, that person's called a hedjot. You're a fool because it's teishu kein tadiru. There is no mitzvah. That being said, I think there's a Chabad shita. The Lubavitch, I think they sit in the rain even in the sukkah. Maybe it depends on how hard the rain is, but they say is it's a bigger star for them to be sitting inside and not sitting in the sukkah, so the rain isn't as effective. You know, that's not how to say halachic, but you know, if that's the minute Chabad, you know, then maybe it is. I know Chabad people do it. I don't know if that's just Chabad people here, or if or maybe different Chabad do different things. But strictly al pi halacha, if it's raining, you shouldn't. It's not preferable to sit in the rain. It's preferable not to be in the rain. You should be inside and enjoying. You know, again, if it really doesn't bother you, it's something else. Again, because for me, rain bothers me a lot. Not rain is so much. I can't enjoy, because the issue is there's a mitzvah of Simchas Yantif. Yeah. So you have to enjoy Yisuda. So for me, the issue is the rain, and even like if it's dripping, I can't enjoy my food if I'm getting like soaked. How cold it is or how hot I can deal with. I don't really care if it's freezing. I don't even need heat, so I'll put on a sweater. I mean, obviously, you know, if it's minus 30, but I'm just saying it's not going to be that cold. So for me, again, there's always going to be a judgment call when you're talking about a mitzvah. It's hard to say objectively. It depends on age, condition, a lot of factors that go into what's considered a chol and that. But as a general rule, if you are a mitzvah, you putter, not only putter, but they point, you know, it's putters you shouldn't do it because it's taking away from your simchas yantiv. So that's the mitzvah of Sukkot Teishu Kein Tadiro. So there's an interesting, especially this for the first night of Sukkot, the first 2 nights. The Torah brings down when he discusses Hilchas Sukkah, he's a halacha sefer, but he's strange when he goes into the mitzvah of sitting in the sukkah. He seems to go into the history, and you know what? You know when sitting in the sukkah, he goes through the whole story. He goes through the philosophy of the schach and what to remember and all that. And the question is, why is the Torah going into all the history and other matters? It's not the normal method of the Torah. And as well, the question is, the more fundamental question is, why are we celebrating Sukkot now? Because why? Because if basically Sukkot is the machlokas Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Akiva, whether when we were traveling in the Midbar from Egypt to Israel, was it Sukkot Mamish? Was it literally actual sukkahs? They got every day, they stopped, they built tents, they built sukkahs, or no, it was the Adonai HaKavod, it was the cloud of glory that protected them the whole time and protected them from all the elements, all the food, etc. So whichever pshat you take, the bottom line is, why did it happen? Why did it happen? It happened in the springtime. We left Mitzrayim when we went, so therefore we should be celebrating right after we finish Passover. We should go right into Sukkot. So the Torah, it's the famous kasha of the Torah. So he writes a famous answer. He writes because how would it look? He says if the spring's coming and you're building a sukkah, it looks like you're building a summer house. You're getting ready for the spring. It wouldn't be recognizable you're doing it with Shei Mitzvah. But right now, the summer is ending, literally today, and Sukkot, so you don't start building a summer home in the fall, and fall heading into winter, so in order to make it recognizable, so that's what we celebrate now. That's what the Torah writes. So obviously it needs more Havana, like, okay, you know what? So you know what? Since some might get the wrong idea, you know what? I'll celebrate Sukkot at the wrong time. Like, there still has to be more than that. You can't just say because something looks different, we're not going to do it the right. There must be something internally, inherently special about this time in the celebration of Sukkot. So that's the Vilna Gaon. The Vilna Gaon, there's a lot of Vilna Gaon Torah all the time. There's a lot of stuff on Sukkot, like everything, but it's, as well, I think it's Cholamite Sukkot is actually, I think, the Yort site of the Vilna Gaon. So as the Vilna Gaon writes, he says, to interrupt the tour, he says, you know why we celebrate Tezvav Tishrei? For a different reason. He says, because what happened was, he goes through the whole Cheshbon, but basically we sinned at the Cheda Egel, at the sin of the golden calf, and the divine presence left us. And then it didn't come back now until we got the Luchos Shnius, and then basically he figures out, he goes through the Cheshbon, that basically we brought the Karbanos, etc. The Shechina returned on Tezvav Tishrei. But the Sukkah, what Tezvav Tishrei represents, is HaKadosh Baruch Hu forgave us for the sin of the golden calf, and He's renewing His love. And as the Vilna Gaon explains, in davening we say in the Shalosh Regalim, Ata bacharta mikol ha'amim, you chose us among the nations. Ahavta osano, you loved us. V'ratzisa bano. So the Vilna Gaon says that's an allusion to the Shalosh Regalim. That when it says Asher bacharta bano, you chose us, that's referring to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Then that we left. So we were chosen as a nation, we left Mitzrayim. Ahavta osano, He gave us the Torah. That's the Yad of Yeshua. What's the Ratzavano? What does that have to do with Sukkot? So the Vilna Gaon says the Ratzavano is in Russian Ritzoy. Ritzoy meaning forgiveness. In other words, there are different levels of forgiveness. We have many words, Slicha, Mechila. But on one hand, there's the lowest level where a person, this says, okay, I forgive you, but doesn't really fully forgive the person. Like Rabbi Rabbi writes by Yosef and the brothers. It never writes anywhere explicitly in the Chumash that Yosef actually forgave the brothers. We assume that, many Mefarshim. Rabbi Rabbi says it never happened. He, maybe on a superficial level, but they really never forgave him. That's why we had suffering later on. The sin of Mechiras Yosef is still around. So there's different levels. If someone says, I forgive you, but they don't mean it. I just want to get you off the back because you're going to come back and keep on it. And then there's forgiving someone. I forgive you, but don't come back to this house again. No more melt away. So there's forgiving, but what's the highest level is to forgive, and you want to renew the relationship the way it was before. In other words, it's not, okay, I forgive you, but that's it. We'll never be the same again. That's something, but it's not. So the Ratzavano Ritzoy is HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to renew the Sukkot, renew the love for us the way it was even before the Chet Ego. And that's what Sukkot, that happened on Tezvav Tishrei, and that's why we celebrate now the Yom Tov of Sukkot. So the question, getting back,
who says that?
That's the Vilna Gaon. So therefore the Torah, getting back to the question is, so the Torah writes this whole history. So what is this? The Bach points out, one of the Mefarshim on the Shulchan Aruch points out that what is the reason why the Taz is going into all the details here? Because we know there's a concept in general in many Gemaras called Darshinan Taima Dekra, or Eino Darshinan Taima Dekra. There's a famous dispute in the Gemara in Bava Metzia. The Torah tells us you can't take collateral from a widow. And the assumption being because a widow doesn't have a husband supporting her, and therefore if you take her pillow or blanket, she'll have nothing to sleep with. So we don't take it. So there's a dispute in the Gemara between Rabbi Yehuda and Rav Shimon. What about if it's a wealthy widow? She was independently wealthy, she had a good life insurance policy, or I should say she had a good one on her husband, and so whatever the reason, she has plenty of money. So now do we say, can I take collateral from a widow? So that's a machlokas Rabbi Yehuda Rav Shimon. Rabbi Yehuda says, Eino darshinan taima dekra. We can't take the reason and limit the scope of the mitzvah. Therefore we can't make hashmah. The Torah says, no collateral, that's it. Comes along Rav Shimon and says, no, darshinan taima dekra. No, we have a right to take the reason, either expand or limit the scope of the mitzvah. And it's interesting, Rav Menachem Zemba, one of the great rabbis who was killed by the Nazis not too long ago, he points out this Rav Shimon is Lishitason. Interesting, he was killed by the Nazis, so he's talking about anti-Semitism. There's a famous Rashi in Chumash, when Yaakov met Esav. So the Rashi over there talks about Halacha v'yadua Esav Sone et Yaakov. It's a halacha, it's a well-known halacha Moshe Misinai, that Esav hates Yaakov. So the question is, maybe it's true. We mean halacha. To say derech eretz, like what do you mean it's a halacha? So Rav Zachem Zebed says, who's the main, or who's the one who made this statement? It's Rav Shimon. So Rav Shimon, who normally says Darshinan time at the Kra. We look for reasons, and then you could apply. So you would say, so you would think Rav Shimon said, anti-Semitism. Well, it depends. So he's saying even Rav Shimon agrees. It doesn't make a difference. If you're rich, they don't like you because you're rich. If you're poor, they don't like you because you're poor. You run the world, they hate you. You don't run the world, they don't like the way you look. So the point is, even Rav Shimon says when it comes to anti-Semitism, there's no logic to it. Then you can't be Darshinan Tai. Halacha v'yadua. It's just it's built into the Bria. It's not something you can write hundreds of books on it. And I'm not saying you should try to understand it, but ultimately it's based on an illogical thing, something built into the Teva. So they point out that Rav Shimon normally says Darshinan time in the Kra. So therefore, if it's a wealthy widow, so he says you're allowed to take collateral. So that's a machloket with Rav Shimon. However, there seems to be an apparent contradiction in Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says a rich widow you can't take collateral, but then the Gemara goes on and talks about in the second parak in Sanhedrin about a king. The Torah says a king can't have so many wives. So Rabbi Yehuda says you can. You can even have more than the prescribed. It talks about that by Shlomo HaMelech. You can have more than the prescribed amount. Because he says, because Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. It depends on the wives you're taking. If you're taking wives, they're going to take you away from God, then don't marry them at all. Right. If you're having good wives that bring you closer, you can have as many as you want. Darshinan time at the cross, so what's the difference? So the Gemara answers, it depends. But in the case of the widow, all the Torah says is you can't take collateral from a widow, period. So I have no right now to make up my own. We assume it's because the widow is poor, but the Torah doesn't say it, so I have no right to make up my own reason. However, by the case of the king, the Torah itself gives the reason that it should lead you astray. Okay, so if I'm going to take someone who's not going to lead me astray, so then I can have as many as I want. So that's the principle. So even though normally we're passing like Rabbi Yehuda, that Edo Darshinan time in the Kra, but the Torah itself gives the reason, so then we say we can limit or expand the scope. Interesting, some Rishonim even take it further. The sheet of Ukubetzes, the Rush, about there's a prohibition of when your animal is working in the field, there's a prohibition, you can't muzzle the ox, you can't muzzle the animal. Why? Because it's Sar Balei Chayim, it's causing distress to the animal. It's not right. You have to, he's working in the field and the food's right in front of him. It's not right to make him suffer like that. In fact, that's a whole discussion. It's a whole discussion. The Gemara, we seem to follow Sar Balei Chayim is Daraisa. What's interesting to note is there's not one clear source. There are about 12, 13 different sources brought down what the possible. So here's one of them is brought down, this pasuk, that because of Sar Balei Chayim, so therefore you can't muzzle your ox. So let me ask you something. What about if the animal's working in the field where there's poison in the field, or there's things if he eats it's going to kill him or hurt him? So you let him muzzle your ox? So comes along the Shita says, yeah, you can. He says because that's built in, because the whole purpose of it's clear the whole reason why you can't muzzle the ox is because to prevent Sar Balei Chayim. Where here goes opposite of the essence, or similarly the Rishonim write also by burial. The halach is covered tipareno by Yom Mahu. The halach is you have to bury someone right away. However, the Mishnah says there's an exception that if you have to wait for close relatives to come, the children, the brothers, sisters, so then we wait. The Torah says you have to do it that day. So again, in Yerushalayim it's different. But, so what the answer? The answer is it's the same Yisod. We're interested in Kavod HaMeis. We're interested in honor of the dead. So whenever usually honor to the dead means you're buried right away, because the quicker the burial, the quicker the atonement. But a situation where it's so built in, so that's, so some Rishonim say even if it's so obvious, even then. But what's clear is if it says it in the pasuk, so even Rabbi Yehuda agrees darshinan time in the crop. So that's what the Bach. So the Bach says it. So the Bach has a chiddush. All those cases were in the negative. Let's say not to violate things. Comes on the Bach and says it also works in terms of mitzvahs aseh. So in addition to having and so in general it's a discussion in the Gemara whether mitzvahs strichas kavana, the mitzvahs need intent. So again, major machokas. And the Gemara is halach l'maisa we paskin on a mitzvah min Torah they need kavana. On a rabbinical mitzvah they don't need kavana. So we paskin sukkah is a deraisa, especially light of the first night. So you always need the general mitzvahs that you have to be aware that there's a mitzvah of sukkah. That you have some you don't have to be concentrating hard that's every second. And basically the reason somebody asks you why you're sitting in here, because it's Sukkot and that's my mitzvah. You don't have to be thinking about it while you're in there. It's obvious why. So that's the general mitzvah strichas kavanah. But the second level that Bach brings down, you need a special kavanah. You have to remember, look at the schach and remember about the miracles that happened in the midbar. So why does the Bach say? And in fact, some say if you don't have this kavanah, you don't get the mitzvah. Why? Because the pasuk tells us you sit in the sukkah. Why? Since the Torah itself gives the reason for the mitzvah, so the Torah itself gives the reason for the mitzvah. So I need that added kavanah. Besides the general mitzvah strichas kavanah, but I need the special kavanah. I have to look at the schach and realize that why am I sitting here? Remember about the sukkahs or Alei HaKavod. And that's what so we paskin u'chatzchilu you should have a b'diavad. You don't have to go ahead and redo the mitzvah. But u'chatzchilu, but that's at some point out based on this drasha. That's why the Torah goes the whole long history. The Torah is a halachic work. The halachic work is as brief as possible. He's not just giving me a history lesson. He's telling me you got to know the history, because the history is is halach. Like the Rambam also in Hilchas Chanukah, he also does something that she goes through the history. So different Mefarshim explain also. He's not just giving me a history lesson. When we get to Chanukah, we'll go into it. But he's teaching me we have to know these factors. For halachic reasons of Hallel or other things. So just to summarize, so we pointed out the mitzvah min Torah of sitting in the sukkah, the whole sukkahs, and we'll get into Shemini Atzeres next week. And we said the mitzvah is Teishu Kein Tadiru. You have to live in the sukkah the way you live in your house. So if you're uncomfortable, it's raining, it's freezing, and you move into another room, so then you're exempt from the sukkah. Again, however, the first 2 nights is an exception to the rule. Well, it's a machlokas if it's an exception to the rule, but since it's a doubt on a biblical law, so we're strict the first 2 nights. So if it's raining, we go ahead and we make a kiddush. We don't make a leishe basukah. We have a kazayis bread, we go inside. If that's it, we just finish our meal inside. But if it stops, we go back out. It's only the first 2 nights, and the rest of sukkah we're exempt, because that the Ramah quotes, the one who does something he's exempt from is considered a hedge at a full. His example is if you're sitting in the rain, you're taking away from Simchas Yontif. And then we pointed out the famous Vilna Gaon explaining why are we celebrating sukkahs now. If the Torah says because else it looks like it's a summer. Okay, good. So I'm not gonna. What's better? People think I'm doing the right time, but people think I'm doing it for another reason, or celebrating. It's when we celebrate Hanukkah in the summer because it doesn't look at my candles will blow out. Everything obviously I can't just change the date. That's what the Vilna Gaon points out. That's the renewed love. We got back to we were forgiven for the Cheder Ego, and that's Asher Bachar. Asher Bacharta Bano is Pesach, Hafta Osano is Shuas, or Ritza Bano, that's Sukkot, and Sukkot also, by the way, the Gaon points out, it's connected to Karban a lot. We compare the Sukkot to a Karban because the concept of the Karban is God forgives us and we start fresh again. That's what Sukkot is. It's not that, okay, I forgive you, but just don't walk into this house again, I'm never talking to you again. But actually going back and even making it better. Our relationship even got better afterwards. We got things that we didn't even have before. And then we pointed out that Torah said that the first 2 nights, when you sit in the sukkah, in addition to the general mitzvah sfichas kavana, you have to have the added element of L'man Yeda Dorasech. Just like we discussed the Machokas, Rabbi Huda Roshim about the Arshinan time in the Kra, the Bach says regarding, on the positive sense, you have to think about the L'man Yedu while we're sitting in the sukkah. Of course, it's a good idea. We pass him if you don't, it's still good, but obviously one should try to have that kavanah in mind of L'man Yedu Dorasechem, give a sukkah so shafte. Just to conclude, that on Sukkot, the normal we have Nisach Hayayim, we have the wine libations. But on Sukkot, we have Nisach Hamayim, we have the water libation. The Gemara talks about one who hasn't seen the Simcha Beis HaShoeva, one who hasn't gone to the Beis HaMikdash. The Gemara goes into a description, all the crowds, magicians, people doing all these, that's what Simcha is all about. If someone who hasn't gone to Sukkot during the Beis HaMikdash, you don't even know what Simcha is. So they point out that we have the Nisach Hamayim. So the question is, why all year round we need the wine libations, but by Sukkot we have the Nisach Hamayim, the water libations. Why the change? So they, so some Mepharshim explain, Derek Drush, homiletically, that as follows, that the reason is that unfortunately we see it all the time, natural disasters, not natural disasters, your house burns down, your hurricane, tornado, these terrible tragedies happen, and therefore you see it on TV all the time, you read about it, how after a person lost his whole home, all his belongings, and he has nothing to his name, they're sitting there smiling on TV, how lucky I am, I'm alive, my family, my kids are with me, all of a sudden the big homes, the big cars, or whatever, that's not so important anymore. So so Sukkot is the double element. On one hand, it's part of the Shalosh Regalim, the 3 Yom Tov, Sukkot, and Shavuos, but it's also an extension of the Yomim Noraim. It's an extension of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. That's why we still say L'David Hashem Ori, and that's why in the Bali Kabbalah they write really the Gemara Hadin is Hoshana Rabbah. So that's why people stay up all night, and we'll write. So it's also an extension of the Yom Noraim. And what happened on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur? The whole world is judged. B'yamos u'miyikya, as we say in the Sana Tokef. Who's going to live? What kind of year we're going to have? We go from the most solemn day to Sukkot, the happiest day. Sukkot is, even though we have mitzvah simcha and all the Yom Tovim, but the Torah emphasizes it more specifically on Sukkot. Why the change? Why are we so happy on Sukkot? And how come we only need the water? And that's the answer, is because maybe all year round, maybe we need the wine to get us going, other things. But right after we just survived Yom Hadin, we're just happy to be alive with the little things, so even water. You don't need your Dr. Browns. Even the water will cover you. I get a lot of emails, but someone sent me an email, not about Sukkot actually, but it's a short story. I'll just say we'll conclude on it, based on the essence of what we're talking about. So basically the story goes, a blind person was sitting in front outside with a sign. And on the sign it said, "I am blind, please help." And he was sitting there for a couple of hours, not too much success. A couple of coins they put into the hat. And so then this man came over, and he couldn't see him, but he heard the footsteps. And if you can't see, you can be more sensitive hearing. And he heard the guy take the sign, and he saw, or he told him, he turned the sign over and he wrote something else, but he didn't know what he wrote, and he left. And sure enough, for the next couple of hours, the money piled in. He was really living it up. So I guess a couple of hours after that, he recognized the footsteps, and he said, "Oh, you the guy who wrote something or changed his sign?" He says, "Yeah, can you please tell me what you did to this? What did you write on that sign? Did you make up some lies? And how did I get you all this money?" He says, "No, I only wrote the truth, but I said it in a different way. I wrote, today is a beautiful day, but I cannot see it." Both signs told the people that the boy was blind, but the first sign just said simply the boy was blind. The second sign told people they were so lucky that they weren't blind, they were able to see. Should we be so there's no surprise that the second sign was much more effective. And there are many morals to the story, but one obvious one is, be thankful for what you have. Be creative, be innovative, think differently and positively. When life gives you 100 reasons to cry, and we just came off the shofar, 100 shofar best represents crying. When life gives you 100 reasons to cry, show life that you have 1,000 reasons to smile. Face your past without regret. Handle your present with confidence. Prepare for the future without fear. Keep the faith and drop the fear. The most beautiful thing is to see a person smiling, and even more beautiful is knowing that you are the reason behind it. So that's the that we always take things for granted. Worry about what type of shoes, and I don't like my sneakers, my shoes, instead of being thankful I have legs, I have feet. So the sign was obvious. Everyone knew he was blind, but the power of contrast, and that's what the whole essence of Sukkot is all about. We come off the Yomim Noram, the high holidays, and we just survive the life and death scenario. So it's enough. The ultimate simcha is appreciating life, and therefore we can even do that even with the Nishma Hamayim. All we need is the water to get us going, because now we have perspective, and we're able to celebrate Sukkot with simcha.